And we are live. Hello and welcome to yet another, I think this is episode 6 of our fantastic quarantine hangout and have a chat about nothing and everything. This week we've got a very special, but I guess you would say a little bit shorter session than normal. And that's because we have exactly 1 week until the Kickstarter is live, which is pretty scary. Scary but exciting, right, Sean?
Oh, yes. Scary, exciting, wonderful, especially with all of the chatter that's out there already.
Yeah, well, we've been doing the Kickstarter thing of beating the drum, so to speak, and lots of work to do. The Kickstarter page has been submitted, so we are just waiting for approval from Kickstarter, and at that stage we'll be able to share the page preview with people. So that's also pretty exciting.
Nice.
So something that I should definitely, right at the beginning of the stream, let's say we're not going to go on for long with this one, and this is definitely a Kickstarter Q&A session. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments section, and Sean will pick them up. We are live on both Facebook and YouTube, and so we can take questions from either platform. So fire those our way. I'll try and be as forthright as possible. As always, I'm going to be a bit secretive about certain things. I don't want to reveal too much too early, but I'll try and give as much information as I can. So, Sean, how's your week been?
Pretty good so far. Since we're staying at home so much, the girlfriend and I decided we would take advantage of one of those discount bed companies online. So new large foam mattress arrived yesterday, so we get that to play with and check out.
Excellent. I'm a bit jealous. Although no rest for the wicked. I actually took a nap in the middle of the day today because I woke up at like 5:30, just nervous and unable to get back to sleep and worried about all the things I've got to do. So I started doing them, and then by midday I was just felt rubbish. And of course, one of the problems with this whole virus situation when you're running a Kickstarter is we've had two big problems. Number one, it's been really tough to get decent prototypes of the game components, and basically I just haven't been able to do that. I've done the best I can, and we've sent a few precious copies out to some people who are going to cover the game and show people how to play over video, over YouTube, and that sort of thing. So excited about that. Won't say too much about it, but apart from the fact that we have found the prototypes very difficult to get our hands on, I also had a parcel force fail where 5 identical looking but not identical contents parcels went out to 5 different people, and the guy just slapped any old label on any old parcel, so everyone has got each other's parcels. This is a complete disaster because different people were going to be covering different aspects of the game, and they've all just going to have to make do and mend with what they get. So that's great. And the other thing is, believe it or not, Sean, one thing you may or may not know about me is that I'm not a professional video editor.
Really?
And I don't have a house full of expensive filming and recording equipment. So making a Kickstarter video that looks even vaguely professional, basically from my living room, is a bit of a challenge. Last time, of course, I had a professional cameraman and we did the whole thing as well as we possibly could. And I fully intended on doing that this time. And sadly, it became clear that wasn't going to be doable in the current climate. It's a bit hard to film things when you're not supposed to stand within 2 meters of somebody, and nobody's supposed to be traveling for anything that's non-essential. I mean, my opinion, of course, is that getting a good Kickstarter video out for the backers so they can really get a good sense of what the project's about is 100% essential. Sadly, our local policeman disagrees.
Well, stick figure flip books. That's, I think, all we need, right? And we'll sell it that way.
I mean, sounds a bit labor intensive, Sean. I don't know. But yeah, the trials and tribulations. So I hope everybody likes our new. I meant to sort out the screen sharing thing and show a few screen caps, but instead, what I was going to show, I posted to Facebook today. We've got one of the first hero models. It has just come in. We are, I think, again, another virus situation. A lot of things are late. Luckily, I got a lot of things ahead of time, but we're still getting assets in from a few artists, and hero models are all coming in this week. I've got that one file is nicely rendered and presentable, and the other files we're just doing some testing on size testing and that sort of stuff before we actually render those and show them to people. So over the coming week, I think before the Kickstarter launches, you will have seen all of the hero sculpts. I think now we've seen 5 out of the 6 pirate sculpts, and we have seen 3 out of the 5 new, 3 out of the 6 new dino sculpts. Yes. So we've seen the big guy, the Baryonyx, boss fight potential. We've seen the little guys, the Sinosaurs, and very exciting, the Sinosaur. We've also got a bigger Sinosaur, what we're calling an alpha sculpt. During the campaign, I'll explain a little bit more about what alpha sculpts are. And we are waiting on the Magnasaurs. They have literally, we've got the T-poses done and they're being posed at the moment. So nice. That's very exciting. He's doing it in a slightly different method, this sculptor, than normal. But cool. I've seen some preview pictures and they're looking pretty exciting. So hopefully we should be all set and ready to go. Is it raining where you are, Sean?
It was. It was kind of drizzly and gray, so I've been stuck inside. I thought I could hear
rain.
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it's me. It's been raining here all day.
It could also just be my little laptop.
Oh yeah, maybe
chugging away together. Yeah, no, I saw some of those renders. Those look awesome. Go ahead, everybody, throw up in the chat. Which of the 4 characters are you most looking forward to? And a Florian was saying he wants it to be a Croc Doc, but he'll take the Crocodile Scout.
Yeah. Well, so there isn't actually going to be a medic class in Liya Chronicles. And the reason for that is pretty simple. It's because it's the way that the movement works in Drowned Earth. You can imagine that getting your designated medic to all of the rest of your friends efficiently with the action point limitations is going to be a bit tricky, and it's not going to be a very fun game for them. They're going to be running from place to place. So basically, healing is going to work a little bit differently. More will be revealed later. I thought about AOE heals the way that video games work, and I think it works in a video game. It works in a system where there's magic. It doesn't work so well in a vaguely realistic setting where you just sort of throw a med pack at someone's head and their health bar goes
right? That's what I do,
Yeah.
It's usually a hot pocket, though. You just throw it and health it.
The patient was not, in fact, healed. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's throw some questions around.
So some questions? All right. Well, let's see. Since we were talking about our what some people are curious if it's a Saurian, if it's a crocodile and a completely different species. We had a couple questions. So let's start off. Well, what's your thoughts on the Saurian lineages and the Saurian race in Ulea?
So there are 2 main kinds of Saurians in Ulea. There are Satrapsids and Therapsids, I believe. I might have got the first name wrong. Now I think about it, it's been a while since I read my own book. Effectively, there are a number of subspecies, but those are the 2 main ones. And 98% of Saurian subspecies belong to one or other of those groupings. And there are a number of rarer subgroupings as well, and there's great debate, because people understand. They've read in the ruins, they know what genetics means, and they understand these things, but they don't really have the science, and except in rare cases when they drag they find some, working complex or something like that, or semi-working complex. People don't, they know a lot more than they can actually see, because their science is still very, very primitive in comparison. So they read all these things and find out all these things from the old world. And a lot of people just don't believe them, because it's just natural not to believe something that can't be proven. It's just some dusty book says that. But anyway, my point is that there's great debate amongst Saurians and amongst other people to what degree there's crossover between these different subgroups and subspecies and that sort of thing. So the two main groupings are really to do with how much raptor DNA they have versus how much iguana DNA they have. And there's a more seemingly aggressive, not necessarily correct, but more overtly, and this is probably more of a cultural than a genetic thing, but one group are seen as being much more fighty, basically, than the other. I think you can guess which those are. And the locust horde, there's a really large Saurian culture in the southern part of Liya, off the map from the book. This is somewhere else we'll go in a future release, I hope.
Ooh, nice.
But if you imagine the Mongols rode pterodactyls, then that gives you an idea of what these guys are like. And they're really fractious, and they go on huge crusades and conquer large amounts of territory, and then it all collapses because they start fighting each other and can't decide on a great leader and this kind of thing. So yeah, pretty cool. But yes, to answer the question, the scout model that we've seen is definitely a Saurian.
Cool. Yeah, he's a little different looking than some of the others.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, he looks a little bit more like Lacasque.
Okay.
And less like Slesk and Liss.
Cool. That southern race sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about the Ferengis? Let's go to the other race that's got a lot of variation in it.
Okay. So it's entirely cultural variation and not genetic variation. And so the large groupings, really, you can group Ferengi into three groups. There are the settled Ferengi who live in the middle of Liya with everyone else and are integrated and mixed. And then there are two cultures of Ferengi that are quite insular and quite exclusive. Basically the Western Highlands gorillas and the Eastern Ferengi and the Eastern Ferengi. Now the Eastern Ferengi live in a mountain city, basically, and they've got a kind of very calm. They're you wouldn't describe them as militant, but they're certainly very proficient at self-protection. Nobody's going to try and assault Kajin-Kai very easily. But having said that, they're not aggressive, but they are slightly martial. But really, they're almost like a philosopher kingdom, where they're ruled by a council of very reasonable, possibly quite infuriating at times if you live there, philosophers who want the best for everyone. It's a little bit of a secretive city. They do let outsiders in, but they refuse entry to outsiders as well, as often as not. And then in the east, the Eastern Highlands Ferengi are tree dwellers, and they really much more than the Kajin-Kai people, the Western Ferengi. The Western Ferengi they don't have large amounts of technology, but they definitely live in the modern world kind of thing. Whereas the Eastern Ferengi are quite anti-technology in a way, to a degree. Again, when it comes to self-protection, they're quite happy to wield a gun, but they live in cities in the trees and don't really like outsiders as much, particularly not Ferengi, more tolerant of Ferengi, suspicious. And then as I've said, the Ferengi that live in the middle of Liya are very integrated and as diverse as you and I. Having said that, there are certain things about their culture that unite all three Ferengi groups.
Cool. So the question verbatim I have about the Ferengi is, which Ferengi is the best, and why is that Sage?
Well, I think some people own. All right, let's enter the pronunciation debate. But Fankanya is definitely considered to be the best by lots of people. I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not coming down on one side or another. All I'll say is that Sage was the first model I had sculpted, and so he will always have a real I'll always have a soft spot for him.
I guess for me, I gotta go with my crack monkey Hosk. Unfortunately, I am probably one of the people that helps to perpetuate the myth that Ferengis cannot climb things. My Hosk model will fall off in the highest point of my board at any moment.
I think it's pretty simple. I think Ferengis that aren't on crack can climb things. You know, he deserves everything he gets.
All right, well, continuing with races, but let's go to something new here in the Liya Chronicles. Nuala, the squid girl. Is she the result of genetic engineering? Can we shed some more light about her and her race?
So I've got a blog article coming on it, so I'm not going to say the name of the race, but yes, she's a result of genetic engineering, and you know, like a lot of other races in Liya, she has a large part human DNA with various kinds of marine and aquatic animal DNA going on there as well. I will give, I know that's I've only given like a very sort of dodge the question kind of answer. So I'm going to change tack completely and say something really cool about her. You've seen she's got a fish-shaped gun. You probably can't see on the render, but you'll be able to see on the model. There are wires coming out of that gun that plug into her arms, because her species, like electric eels, actually generate energy in their forearms. And so that gun sends out a bolt of energy, and she actually powers the gun herself. It's pretty cool.
That's very cool. All right. A silly follow-up to that. If Nuala was to go to the hairdresser, would that hairdresser be making calamari? Yeah, probably. I mean, I think the hairdresser would turn into calamari quite quickly as well, to be honest. They're possibly more quickly. See, there we go. 2 direct quotes about Nuala right there. Let's see. Let's go with a specific one about the Kickstarter. For Liya Chronicles, will it have widgets that come with the game, or will it be pure tape measure or your own measurements?
Okay, so basically there's a sort of boring technical side of things. The way that the Kickstarter is priced, or the way that you price a game that you're about to produce, the core rules have been designed, but we haven't finished writing and balancing all the scenarios, and I might just find I need things for those scenarios. What we've got is a component limit for the box, and that's how I'm able to know how much it's going to cost ahead of time. And so I have a certain amount of space on the token punch boards, and if I can squeeze measuring widgets onto those token punch boards, I absolutely will. I would prefer to. I think it's much better. Again, it's back to the Christmas morning test. You don't need anything except what's in the box. So I'm going to try really hard to make sure there are. But if we're really pushed for space and the choice is a movement widget or some really cool scenery tile, then the cool factor might have to win.
And actually, that kind of brings up I'll throw a question in for me just to get your thoughts and opinions. I think over the last couple of years, movement widgets have gone from a fun niche thing to almost, I don't want to say normalized, but more preferred. So there is still that kind of tape measure versus movement widget or movement stick. So do you have any thoughts on that whole debate.
Well,
That's not a debate.
I have a friend and playtester called Thomas Macklin. Some of the people in viewers will know who I'm talking about, and he has this fantastic way of launching a piece of scenery across the room by getting it hooked on the end of a tape measure and then just pulling his hand away and ripping it with him, and it goes over one shoulder. And you've never, I mean, he's an enormous guy. He's 6'3". And built like, well, I won't say what he's built like because it's not polite, but built like a brick outhouse, I think is the polite expression. And you've just never seen this huge guy look so sheepish, like a puppy sitting next to a pile of poo, every time he does it. And it's hilarious. But yes, there are huge advantages in movement widgets. And if you've got a game where there are a bunch of standard measurements, then for movement, it's fine. Of course, you can't make a movement widget to measure weapon range and things like that.
Yeah, I guess for me, I've always found that too. It's like I will always need a small 3-foot tape measure for long stuff, but for movement, yeah. I'm more and more into widgets myself.
Well, one of the things, so I like the ones that are different widths and lengths. So you've got the 2 inches there, the 1 inch there, the 6 inches there, and the 4 inches there. That works really well for Drowned Earth because you've got 4 and 6 movement is fairly common. Then when you get into the 5s and the 8s, do you then need 2 different movement widgets, and do you keep both of them by the side of the table? Yeah. I'm famous for managing whatever it is I need in a game, I lose it. So tape measure is going to get lost at some stage. The movement widgets, I'll only be able to find the one that isn't the one that I need, etc. So I feel like I should just have a big chain around my neck with all these things hanging, or like a what are they called in Game of Thrones? The maesters. I should have a maester chain with all the wargaming paraphernalia.
Just get a bandolier or a vest and just stick it all
exactly.
in there, ready to go.
But there is something. So there is something else that has occurred to me, and that's that there aren't really any, because we're using a much smaller table. There are the weapon ranges are shorter in Liya Chronicles. And we've done away with the 2 different weapon ranges, and weapon range nailing it and passing pertaining to weapon range. It only pertains to damage in Liya Chronicles. And so a 12-inch movement widget would be enough. The thing is that the box is roughly, it's big enough to fit A4. And I think that's just about 12 inches. So there might not be enough room on the punch board to make them a full 12-inch length anyway. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. What I'd really like to do is have a 12-inch stick for, with ruler basically for measuring, and then a square movement widget. But real estate. I think when people see the preview page, they are going to be pleasantly surprised by the core box price. We're going to try and do as good a deal as we can at Kickstarter. We can't do that as well as I would like with the miniatures. There's a limit to how cheaply those can be produced, and but the core box, I feel like we can do a pretty good deal on it. But what that means is that the contents are incredibly tight, and so it'll have the 3 special dice that you need, and you're going to probably have to reuse those dice for armor dice. The armor dice are D10s as well. We might be able to unlock, they won't go in the box, but for Kickstarter backers we might be able to unlock a pack of 4 armor dice to go with the box, outside the box, but the box itself isn't going to have armor dice. So there are a bunch of different things in order to keep that price low, and in order to make sure that the value of the box is really good, and we can sell it well. I've tried to keep the price down, and that does mean that the contents are really tight.
Well, since we were just talking about pricing and structures, will there be any add-ons for current sets or singles? This is a question from a new player. Will there be any add-ons in the Kickstarter for sets and singles to get into the Drowned Earth?
So one thing that we're definitely going to do is the entire Drowned Earth product range is going to be available in backer kit. There are also, because Liya Chronicles acts as both a standalone game, but elements in it are an expansion to the Drowned Earth. There are various things that we're thinking about. One of the big things is if you want to play with AI Oviraptors, for example. Oviraptors are not in the box. I can't expect it's already, in order to buy all the miniatures that you'd need to play 100% miniatures with Liya Chronicles. If you need, 15, 16 dinosaurs, if you want to meet the component limits and never have to use a standee, most of the time, if you've got 4 of a particular dino, you're probably not going to reach for a standee very often, but in rare occasions you might. So there's a hard component limit. The small dinos, there are 2 types of small dinos included in Liya Chronicles, the rules. And one of them are dilos, so we've seen those already. And one is a new dino type, the Sinoraptors, which again, you've seen renders for. But then we've got Magnosaurs, and we've got the Baryonyx. But what if you wanted to play with Utahraptors? Now, one thing I was obviously aware of is that you can't let Liya Chronicles run every type of dino, because then the expectation of how much stuff somebody has to own in order to play it out of the box is really ridiculous. And so what we're doing is releasing little expansion packs of like a booster pack, basically, which has a really gnarly alpha sculpt of an existing Drowned Earth dino type. And these are going to be stretch goals, by the way. We need to unlock these because there's obviously a budget to produce them. So they'll come with a Drowned Earth profile card, so you'll be able to have an alpha version of a particular dino type for Drowned Earth. And then they will come with the profile cards for Liya Chronicles, so a juvenile, a regular, and an alpha version of that dino type, and the AI deck for that dino type as well.
Cool.
So that's one way in which Liya Chronicles will expand Drowned Earth. Obviously, the core box itself, a lot of the components are multi-purpose. There'll be tokens in there that are usable for Drowned Earth. There'll be the dice as well, etc. And of course, we're back to the same thing. You can use the AI in your Drowned Earth games. As far as expansions of existing factions in Drowned Earth, the answer is yes and no. Basically, no, we don't have any models that are going to go directly into existing Drowned Earth factions. Instead, we're releasing a new faction, the Corsairs, who are basically a wing of the Wayfarers. So I explained this in another chat, but just to sort of say it again, and I'll say it briefly because most people have probably heard it already. One of the problems with having a mercenary faction is that they water down the uniqueness of the rest of the factions. Because if you've got plenty of mercenary models, then and everyone can have access to them, then everybody can bypass their weakness and just take the mercenary models. But of course, I feel bad for anybody who plays Wayfarers who's saying, well, where are our releases? We want some more stuff. So what we're doing is the Corsairs, the pirate faction, are basically going to be part of the Wayfarers are going to be part of the Corsair faction. And it works quite nicely because they're pretty piratey as well. Particularly, I'm thinking Blue Wing Yoka is in the chat. He literally is a smuggler stroke pirate type of character.
He's okay.
Wishbone also looks an awful lot like a pirate, doesn't he? He's got that cool look to him. But anyway, moving on. All Wayfarers will be usable without restriction, without the regular restrictions that you have in taking Wayfarers in the pirate faction. Pirates are also usable within the Wayfarer faction without restriction, but pirates will not act as Wayfarers for other factions. They won't be mercenaries. So at the end of this campaign, the Wayfarers will not only have a much bigger model range, but they're also going to have some different choices of leader, which is pretty cool.
Nice. Another quick one for the campaign. Will there be any gameplay video? in the campaign
I'll
page.
answer that in just a second. I've just remembered on the previous question I did have another point. So I'm just going to move this. The light's shining right in my eyes. The other point to make about the expanding the Drowned Earth range is that we hope that the what are they called? The hero models, the protagonists for Liya Chronicles are hopefully, this is going to be an unlock, but because we need to, in order to make this work, we need to provide some weapon swaps for them, and that's a stretch goal. If we hit that stretch goal, then we're also going to write troop profiles for Drowned Earth, and that core box of protagonists, of heroes, is going to have probably 3 cards for each faction with 3 different troop types for each faction, and you'll be able to build the models to be those different troop types. So that box will serve as an expansion, but not an identical expansion, if you understand what I mean. The profiles are going to be different for each faction. The weapon loadouts might be the same, but the profiles won't be.
Cool.
But every faction is going to have access to some unnamed troop profiles now using that box.
Cool. Yeah. So there we go, guys. Some fun stretch goals to try and work for and make it awesome. Now, do you have any plans for any other releases after this Kickstarter closes?
Yes. Yeah. The release schedule continues, and we've got some exciting things in the pipeline that I'm not going to talk too much about, because let's concentrate on the thing that's literally 1 week away. But after the Kickstarter, I'll start to talk about what comes afterwards. All I'll say is that I've already pointed out that the Wayfarers will have alternate leader options. Wayfarers stroke pirates. That doesn't sound very fair, does it? I think the other factions should as well. And maybe there's something else in the pipeline that'll be released at the same time to change around your list building a little bit and do some cool things with dinosaurs, where maybe you might have a preferred dino type, a unique faction profile for certain dino types.
Nice. Looks like we got a pirate fan who was curious if there might be pirate accessories to make the Wayfarers even more piratical.
Oh, that's a nice idea, actually.
That's kind of cool idea.
I mean, it's not something we've got in development, but I'll mull that one over because I like that.
Speaking of other guys, the Baryonyx, is that just going to be a boss for the campaign, or do you think it'll be able to be added into your own crews in Drowned Earth?
He's 100% going to have a Drowned Earth profile. Yeah.
There you go, Matt Price.
All of the dinos in Liya Chronicles are going to have Drowned Earth profiles, of course. And it's not decided yet whether we're going to ship those profile cards in the Liya Chronicles box, or whether there'll be a separate pack to go with the Kickstarter. Everyone who backs at Kickstarter, but hopefully they'll ship in the box. That would be the easier thing. Again, it just comes down to the fact that the component limitations in that box are really very tight, and we're going to make sure we do. The campaign experience is going to be as cool as it possibly is. But basically, if you buy those dinos at Kickstarter, you're 100% going to have the profile cards, whether they are in or outside the box, for Drowned Earth.
Nice. Let's see. I had another question about the Mantis, Canada's Mantis. So assuming
I know what this question is going to be. Are we going to get
grow pretty large? Are we looking at any giant scorpions, ants, or any other beasts down the pipe?
So at the moment, we're concentrating 100% on dinosaurs. That isn't to say, because anyone who's read the book will know that there are other large insect creatures, sort of prehistoric and just overgrown versions of things that exist in our timeline. But I don't have any plans to release any in the near future. I think another thing is that I'm really very interested in doing things which haven't been done before, and making models which don't exist out there in the wild at the moment. And there are actually quite a few giant scorpions and spider type models. So if you want to make your own rules for them, then you can definitely.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I think we've reached the lightning round, James. So you ready for some quick rapid fire questions?
Yeah, my
Got
cat tail indicates that
You
I
have the
am.
cat to stroke, so it's time to become a Bond villain. All right, so first up, will Liz ever acknowledge Lakasek's love for her?
No, definitely not. In fact, she's applying the 2 meter rule. You know, there's definite social distancing going
Social
on.
distancing with a
Yeah,
knife. Got it.
yeah, exactly.
So what is the main sport in Liya? Is it canopy top golf, underwater cricket, or something else?
It's water polo, obviously.
Water polo, of course. Mocha. Mocha are a frog type person. Did I say that right?
Yeah, moche.
Moche.
Yeah.
Any moche coming in the future?
Yep.
There we go.
Moving swiftly on.
Okay, moving on. Let's see what else we got here. Hey, what's the most common pet among Ulean kids? What's domesticized?
Do you know what? That's a really good point, and it's not something that I've thought about in terms of like cute little cuddly pets. I've spent quite a lot of time thinking about which animals are domesticatable for farming and labor and that kind of thing. I don't know. Do little dinosaurs make good pets? I feel like they might sort of grow up and bite your hand off one day. But definitely, people keep all kinds of little attack dinos as guard dogs and things like that. But yeah, pets is a good one. Let me mull that one over and get back to you.
All right, I'll throw in one. What would be the wildest real rule that you would love to throw into the game, but it just wouldn't work? I'm talking about flying, teleportation, zip lines, underwater breathing.
So I don't want to get people excited about stuff that isn't going to be in the Kickstarter just before the Kickstarter. But I always considered flying rules to be the impossible thing that could be done in Drowned Earth sufficiently. But recent playtesting has proven that maybe my suspicion on that subject wasn't all that accurate. So that's something we might be seeing in the fairly distant, as I say, the immediate thing is the Kickstarter. Perhaps in the next Kickstarter, we might see some flying rules.
All right. This space reserved. Okay. Explain to us what you see in a mirror match. Is it shape-shifting fungus, super chameleons? How does two exact factions? What does that game like for you?
It's an aberration, and it should never happen. I think actually they're very tactically very interesting. It's a little bit world breaking. Obviously, it's a bit like I remember on a. Sorry, my cat's being a complete pest. Ouch! She's got her claws dug into my thigh. I remember on an X-wing forum, with some guy asking, so I've got Luke in an X-wing, and I've got the Millennium Falcon. So can I take Luke's gunner card in the Millennium Falcon as well? And it's like, dude, the fact that you felt the need to ask the question means you already know the answer, But in Drowned Earth, it's 100% legal to have multiple versions of the same model, on different sides, obviously. You can do that, and I guess it's some weird psychedelic dream.
Yes, yeah. Never know. Robots, AI.
I saw somebody asking about robots today.
All right.
Robots are a thing, but they are half broken, and there's not. There are very few working robots around. It's like super rare.
I have just a question popped up from Coastal Con, I believe, over there in the Carolinas. Is there such a thing as too much terrain?
Is there such a thing as too much terrain? Only if you play the bondsman. I think if you're playing against the bondsman and you've got so much terrain that you can't see them until they pop around the corner and shoot you, then the answer is yes. I feel like, but I don't want to say yes, because how cool is that? I think that there need to be open spaces on the board, and not necessarily open spaces, but lines of fire, and the right balance of terrain. Is what makes the games fun and interesting, I think. Probably the best games I've had have all come down to having the right balance of terrain. And now people are going to ask what's the right balance, and it depends on which two factions are playing. It depends what kind of terrain, but basically you want a balance between providing plenty of cover, making it impossible to completely hunker down, with make it impossible for the militia to completely hunker down and just dominate the battlefield with suppressing fire, but not so much terrain that the bondsmen don't get checked at any stage. So there's a bit of a non-answer. Lots of walkways, open walkways is a good way to get around that, I think.
Yeah.
You can get across easily, but you'll be shot. Or you go through the less easy to see routes, but you need to do lots of dynamic movement for that.
And don't forget, you physically have to actually move your hand through the terrain to place a model somewhere.
There is
that's
also
a real
yeah.
impediment, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, especially if you play against Tom Macklin with a tape measure.
Well, we said we would keep this short. We're right about the 40-minute mark. How you feeling? You want to wrap her up?
Yeah. I think that's it's time for me to get my beauty sleep and get back to working out how to edit videos again tomorrow.
All right. Final tidbits, final thoughts for the Kickstarter.
May the 5th. If you haven't already, head on over to LiyaChronicles.com. Should be coming up on the screen now. That's a kind of little preview page that should give you a bunch of information. We will get the Kickstarter preview page up as soon as Kickstarter have verified the project. It's in approval now, waiting for approval. We'll get that out to people soon. If you're not a member of the mailing list, head on over to LiyaChronicles.com. You can follow a link to the mailing list, and then you'll be notified when we go live. It's about all I've got. It's going to be fun. We've got lots of cool activities planned, just like last time. And I would love to hear the community's suggestions. Drop them in Discord, drop them in the Facebook fan group. What do you think would be cool this time around for the Kickstarter, in terms of us all getting together and having a month-long party, basically? One thing we're definitely going to do is we're going to run some games over Tabletop Simulator, maybe even a small tournament. Games of Drowned Earth, not games of the Liya Chronicles. But that should be fun. And yeah, that's about it for now, I think, guys.
Yeah, and we're all super excited. So everybody, we're all part of different communities digitally. So go make sure to comment, share it up with people, spread the word, and we can get some great new game with your Liya Chronicles coming down.
Excellent. So this time next week, we will be live on Kickstarter. We launch at 11 o'clock in the morning, but 8 p.m. we're going to be streaming as usual to discuss what's happened during the day and what's coming, and maybe even teasing a few stretch goals, that kind of thing. So join us next week. We'll get that one scheduled nice and early so people can schedule reminders and things like that for it. Nice. Excellent. So have a great week, guys, and see you on the other side.
Yeah, have a good week, everybody. See you then.